The champagne flutes caught the afternoon light filtering through Mom's dining room windows. Crystal, of course. The expensive set she only brought out for special occasions. Today was special. My younger sister Melissa was introducing her fiancé to the extended family. I'd driven 3 hours for this. Taken a Saturday off from the flight school. Worn the navy dress Mom said made me look almost put together. I should have known better. "Everyone, this is Captain Derek Hayes," Melissa announced, her hand possessive on his arm. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confident posture you develop after logging thousands of flight hours. He flies international routes for Apex Airlines. The room murmured approval. Aunt Carol asked about travel benefits. Uncle Jim wanted to know about the 787 Dreamliner. Derek answered with practiced ease, but his eyes kept drifting toward me with a puzzled expression I couldn't quite read. "And who's this?" he asked when Melissa's grip finally loosened. "Oh." Melissa's laugh was bright, dismissive. "That's just my older sister Anna. She's still trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life." She stage whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Anna still hasn't found herself." The familiar burn started behind my ribs. Not anger. I'd learned to bank that fire years ago. Just the old, tired ache of being erased in my own family. "Nice to meet you," I said, extending my hand. Derek's handshake was firm, professional, but his brow furrowed slightly. "Have we met before? You look familiar." "I don't think so," I started, but Melissa cut in. "Anna doesn't really go anywhere. She's been living in that tiny apartment in Riverside for years. Same town, same routine." Melissa smoothed her engagement ring. 2 carats, platinum band. "Not everyone can be ambitious, I guess." Mom refilled Derek's glass. "Melissa's always been our go-getter. Top of her class, scholarships, the whole 9 yards. We're so proud of how she's built her career from nothing." Dad nodded. "Self-made woman. Paid her own way through aviation school, worked 3 jobs. Never asked us for a dime." I took a long sip of champagne. The bubbles felt sharp going down. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, probably out of habit, and his expression changed. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might be having a medical emergency. "Excuse me," he said, his voice suddenly tight. "Anna, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Melissa's smile froze. "What? Why?" "Just a quick question about aviation training." He was already moving toward the hallway, and something in his tone made me follow. We stopped near the coat closet, away from the dining room chatter. Derek held up his phone. On the screen was a notification from his aviation app. A renewal reminder for his flight instructor certification. "You're A. Morrison," he said quietly. Not a question. A statement. My stomach dropped. "Anna Morrison. You own Riverside Aviation Academy." He scrolled through his phone with shaking hands, pulling up records, documents, photos. "I certified there 6 years ago. Your chief instructor Tom was phenomenal. You have that photo wall in the main office. Every student who goes on to fly commercially gets their picture up there." "Derek. My photo is on that wall," he continued, his voice getting harder. "I thanked the owner personally. A woman with dark hair who told me she was proud of every pilot who walked through those doors." He looked up at me. "That was you." I said nothing. Couldn't really. Melissa told me she paid for her aviation degree herself. Worked 3 jobs. Never had family support. His jaw clenched. "She trained at your school, didn't she?" "Yes." "Did she pay?" The question hung between us like smoke. "I need to know," Derek pressed. "Did your sister pay for her training?" I met his eyes. After 32 years of swallowing truths to keep family peace, something in me finally cracked. "No. I covered her tuition. $68,000 over 2 years. Flight hours, ground school, examiner fees, books. Everything." Derek's hand curled into a fist. He pulled up more records. Apparently he still had access to his student portal. I watched him scroll through transaction histories, payment records, scholarship awards. "This scholarship," he said, pointing at the screen. "The Morrison Family Aviation Grant that covered her entire program. That was you. I created it the year she enrolled. She was the first recipient. She told me she won a competitive national scholarship. Said hundreds of students applied." His voice cracked. "She showed me the award letter at our engagement dinner. Cried about how hard she'd worked to earn it." I wrote that letter, I whispered. I thought if it seemed official she'd accept the help without feeling like charity. Derek stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled up his email, typing rapidly. Within seconds he'd forwarded himself documents from his student records. He opened one. A reference letter submitted as part of his airline application 3 years ago. The letterhead read Riverside Aviation Academy. The signature at the bottom. Anna Morrison, owner/chief administrator. You wrote my reference letter, he said. The one that got me the interview at Apex. I never met the owner. Tom submitted it on your behalf. But this is your name. Your signature. You were an exceptional student. Top of your class. You deserved. Does Melissa have a reference letter? The question was sharp, surgical. Yes. Did you write it? Yes. Did she know you wrote it? I hesitated too long. Derek's expression hardened into something cold and final. He turned and walked back into the dining room. I followed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The family was mid-conversation about wedding venues when Derek set his phone on the table with a soft click. The chatter died. Melissa, he said quietly. Tell everyone here what you do for a living. Her smile was uncertain. I'm a regional pilot for Skybound Air. You know that. And how did you become a pilot? I worked hard. Earned scholarships. Paid my own way. Stop. Derek's voice cut through the room like a blade. He turned to address the whole table. I need to ask the family something. Does anyone here know what Anna does for work? Silence. Mom frowned. Well, she's always been a bit private about that. I think she does administrative work. She owns Riverside Aviation Academy, Derek interrupted. One of the top-rated flight schools in the state. She's certified over 300 commercial pilots in the past decade, including me. He picked up his phone. And according to these records, she created a full-ride scholarship specifically for Melissa. $68,000 in tuition, plus flight hours, plus examination fees. Melissa's face went white. You told me you paid for aviation school yourself, Derek continued, his voice eerily calm. You told me you worked 3 jobs. You told me your family had no connections in aviation. You cried at our engagement party about being self-made. I didn't, Melissa's hands trembled. Anna, tell him. Tell him I didn't know. You knew, I said softly. The words felt like stones in my mouth. I told you the day you enrolled. You said you'd pay me back someday. Derek pulled up another document. This is the reference letter that got you hired at Skybound. It's from A. Morrison, owner and chief administrator of Riverside Aviation Academy. He looked at Melissa. Did you know your sister wrote this? Melissa's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound came out. Last month, Derek continued, you told me your sister was directionless. That she'd never accomplished anything. That she was the family disappointment. His voice dropped. You let me believe that while you built your entire career on her foundation. Dad cleared his throat. Now Derek, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Derek stood, pulling his keys from his pocket. I asked Melissa point blank if she'd had help getting started. She looked me in the eye and said no. She's built our entire relationship on a lie. It's not a lie. Melissa's voice cracked. I worked hard. I earned my wings. You did earn them, I said quietly. You're a good pilot, Melissa. You always were. But you didn't do it alone. Derek looked at me, something like respect flickering in his eyes. Then he turned back to Melissa. I need to think. I'm going back to the hotel. Derek, please. Melissa reached for him, but he stepped back. I'll call you in a few days. Right now I need space. He nodded to me. Anna, thank you for everything you did for my training. You run an exceptional program. Then he was gone. The front door closed with a quiet click that echoed like thunder. The dining room erupted. Mom started crying. Dad demanded explanations. Melissa rounded on me, her face twisted with fury and desperation. How could you, she hissed. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said, suddenly exhausted. I just stopped pretending. Aunt Carol was scrolling through her phone. Oh my God. Riverside Aviation Academy. Anna, your facility has a 98% pass rate. You've won regional awards. Uncle Jim looked stunned. You own that. I drive past it twice a week. That's a multi-million-dollar operation. Mom stared at me like I was a stranger. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said simply. Every time I mentioned the school, Melissa changed the subject. Every time I invited you to visit, you were too busy. After a while, I stopped trying. Melissa sank into her chair, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I was going to tell him. Eventually. When? I asked. After the wedding? After he found out some other way? She didn't answer. I picked up my purse. I'm going home. Thank you for the champagne, Mom. Anna, wait, Dad started. No. The word came out firmer than I'd intended. I've waited 32 years to be seen by this family. I'm done waiting. I drove home in silence, windows down, letting the evening air clear my head. My phone buzzed repeatedly, texts from Melissa, Mom, even Aunt Carol, but I let them sit unanswered. 3 days later, Derek called. I wanted to thank you again, he said. And to apologize for the scene. I couldn't stay in that room after realizing how wrong I'd been about everything. You don't owe me an apology. I do actually. I judged you based on someone else's narrative. That's on me. He paused. For what it's worth, I ended the engagement. I can't build a life with someone who lies about the people who helped her most. I didn't know what to say to that. Your sister has been calling non-stop, he continued, trying to explain. But every explanation just makes it worse. She really believed her own story, I think. She did, I agreed. And maybe that's the saddest part. After we hung up, I walked out to the flight line. Evening students were practicing touch and goes, their small planes catching the sunset like metal birds. Tom waved from the maintenance hangar. This was mine. Built from nothing but student loans, 12-hour days, and absolute faith that aviation could change lives the way it had changed mine. No family money. No shortcuts. Just work. Melissa had used that foundation to fly. And I'd let her, hoping someday she'd acknowledge the ground that held her up. But acknowledgement isn't owed. It's given. And sometimes the people closest to you will take everything and call it nothing. I pulled out my phone and typed a single text to my sister. I'm proud of the pilot you became. But I'm done being invisible in my own story. Don't call unless you're ready to tell the truth, to yourself first, then to everyone else. Then I turned off my phone and watched the planes dance against the darkening sky. Freedom, I realized, doesn't always come from being seen. Sometimes it comes from finally deciding you're enough, even when no one's watching.